Good evening, and thank you for viewing the January 21st, 2021 meeting of the Arcata Planning Commission. We are holding this meeting as a webinar in response to local efforts to reduce the spread of the COVID-19 virus. I want to start by thanking the community and visitors to Arcata and the county for their efforts to slow the spread of COVID-19. Remember, the three most important things you can do to protect yourself and others in the community are masking up, practicing social distance of 6 feet or more, and washing your hands regularly. These fundamental acts of social responsibility will help flatten the curve, keep ourselves and neighbors healthy, and keep our businesses open. Importantly, these measures show support for frontline and essential workers that serve us daily. If you wish to make a public comment during the meeting, there are two ways to do so. First, if you joined the webinar on a computer or similar device, click the raise hand icon when the commission is discussing the agenda item on which you would like to speak. When it is time for public comment on that item, the clerk will unmute you. You will have 2 minutes to comment. Or two, if you do not log into the webinar, you may join the meeting by phone. Call the number on the bottom of the screen. Enter meeting ID also at the bottom of the screen. Press *9 on your phone when the commission is discussing the agenda item on which you would like to speak. Dialing *9 will let the clerk know that you would like to speak. When it is time for public comment on that item, the clerk will unmute you. You will hear a prompt that will indicate your phone is unmuted. You will have 2 minutes to comment. And we can call this meeting to order, the January 21st, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Do we have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Commissioner White?
Aye.
Here. Commissioner Davies?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayer?
Here.
Commissioner Becerra-Elcock?
Here.
Commissioner Barstow?
Here.
Commissioner Figueroa?
Present.
And Chair Taggy?
Here, thank you.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. It was Vice Chair Mayer.
And now we can move on to oral communications. Director Loya, do we have any public comment that should be read before we start?
We have no public comments that have been submitted in writing that aren't on matters on the agenda. We do have about 35 attendees. I am going to lower all hands. If you have something that you'd like to discuss that is not on the agenda, you may raise your hand, your blue hand, and I will allow you to speak on oral communications. Okay, I am not seeing any.
Okay, so no public comment that's not related to this evening's business item or public hearing, sorry. So now we can move on to the consent calendar, and the only item on our consent calendar are the minutes from our January 12th meeting. If we don't have any corrections, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we do a roll call vote on that, please?
Yeah, Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Davies?
Aye.
Commissioner Becerra-Elcock?
Abstain. I was absent.
Commissioner Barstow?
Aye.
Commissioner Figueroa?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mayer?
Yes, approve.
And Chair Taggy.
Yes, approved. Thank you. Moving right along, we have our business item public hearing of the evening, and that is to consider the initial study for the Arcata Ridge Trail Fickle Hill segment. Can we begin with the staff report on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, Planning Commissioners, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the public. Tonight before you, you have the initial study for the Fickle Hill segment of the Arcata Ridge Trail. which has been in development for some time. And the initial study was released for circulation this month, and the circulation period runs through February 16th, which time public comments will be addressed at the City Council in their consideration for approval of the project. The Planning Commission doesn't often have a public hearing during the circulation period for for initial study for negative declarations, but due to the heightened public attention, we thought it was wise to hold this meeting so that public would have a extended opportunity beyond just written comments to speak to decision makers about the initial study. And so we scheduled this hearing and noticed that on the notice of intent, which was released on the project. We did receive several comments on the project that came in after the preparation of the packet, but before tonight's meeting, and I did submit to you as many of those comments as we could reasonably put together before the meeting in 3 separate packets, which will be appended to this staff report later on in Minute Track, so it'll be part of the public record. For those who submitted comments that were not included yet, they will also be included in the record just at a later time, and the City Council will certainly see those comments as they come in. So just a little bit of process real quick. The intent here really is for the Planning Commission to receive public comment. The main purpose for that is to accept that public comment into the record, and we'll provide a synopsis of that along with the written comments to the initial study. The Planning Commission may, if they so choose, make a recommendation to the City Council with regard to the special studies that were associated with the initial study and the initial study itself. But they're not, you're not required to. It's not a formal part of the action that's being taken here. But if you feel so moved, feel free to, and I can help you with a motion for that if you'd like. The initial study was provided as attachment A to your Planning Commission packet. The special studies associated with it were included on the city's website on the project page, and those were all made available through the staff report to the public and to the planning commissioners for your review. We do understand that there's quite a bit of material in here in addition to the approximate 100+ emails that you received in those packets today, and this initial study, though it's not the longest in the world, it's quite a bit to try and digest. And so I don't want to presume that any of you have fully digested or read all of this material. If you have, that's great. But I just wanted to be clear that that's not the intent, that you're expert on all the material tonight. Again, just trying to emphasize the public process here. We have, in addition to the initial study, I wanted to pull out the trail map that's included in your packet as attachment B, which provides some of the crossing design and some of the alignment design. And then in addition to that, we had some public comment that we'd received before, so that's attachment C. So the project itself, I'll go into in very brief, just so that you can get a sense for the project. Bring up my presentation here. It's a grand total of 3 slides. I'm sure you and the public will appreciate that. The project is being proposed on a new piece that the city acquired recently that really provides a connection between the Sunnybury Forest and Fickle Hill, which you see here in the middle of the screen. Project area outlined in red, that's the parcel, subject parcel. And the project is intended to provide a connection to the remaining portions of the Ridge Trail going north, which are directly north of the subject property here. And so the intent here is to really create a connection between the Sunnybury Forest, which occurs around Grossman Creek, and the Ridge Trail and the Arcata Community Forest. For those who are familiar with this area, know that this is part of the Arcata Community Forest here. Zooming in just a little bit to look at what the proposed trail alignment is. The dashed brownish or purplish color is where the new trail is proposed. The majority of this trail follows an alignment of an existing skid road. The property prior to the city's acquisition of it was under a timber harvest plan management. And this skid road was the road that was used for that timber harvesting. I believe the main type of harvesting on this site was selection logging. Now, as you would expect with a piece of property that's sort of in this center of other uses, residential uses, and also being connected with the city's trail system, even historically before the city acquired it. This property has a lot of unauthorized use currently. And so one of the objectives of this project is to ensure that use is managed in a way that's consistent with the open space and forest management and trail management practices that the city has at its embedded in its core documents, such as the bike and ped master plan, the general plan, and its forest management plans. The other primary objectives for the project include trying to ensure that the existing domestic water sources that are on this property are not impacted by trail construction or trail use. Without going into gory detail, there are several adjacent parcels that do have surface diversions for domestic water use on this property. There are some deeded access to those to a spring, as I understand it, and the trail was designed with that in mind, trying to stay back as far from that as possible. There's also the intent behind this project is to ensure that there's a safe crossing. So that's another objective. Obviously, to get from the Sunny Bray Forest to the northern portions of the Ridge Trail where the Arcata Community Forest is, you have to cross Pickle Hill. And so another slightly unusual step that we took in terms of vetting for this initial study was to examine 3 alternatives. Now, you're all familiar with the EIR process. When you do a formal EIR, environmental impact report, you're required to analyze different alternatives, including a no project alternative. I want to clearly distinguish between the alternatives analysis that we're conducting here and the alternatives analysis that would be done under an EIR. The main intent behind doing this alternatives analysis was to ensure that if for some reason the crossing does need to move, either to the west or east of where the preferred crossing is, that we've already analyzed it and that it won't be a change in the analysis, and that we've already addressed the environmental impacts associated with that. The preferred crossing was really chosen because it is the environmentally superior option. In addition, it is the safest crossing option for people using this crossing, giving the greatest sight distance for traffic and the bikes and peds that are crossing at that location. Notwithstanding that being the environmentally preferred alternative, we do have these 2 other options, neither of which have significant impacts on the environment according to the initial study and the studies that were done. And these crossings and this trail alignment were evaluated for their impacts to water quality and geology as well. If we need to, we can get into the details of different design and construction methodologies, but suffice it to say at this point that the red alignment, the preferred alignment, preferred crossing, has the least amount of soil retention structures and impacts to the existing terrain out there. And so that's one of the reasons it was chosen. And then, just lastly, I wanted to give you just a little bit of detail because this is one of the key concerns was the geology and water quality concerns as to where on the landscape these features are. This is figure 9 out of the initial study. And it shows the geology and hydrology results that came from the Pacific Watershed Affiliates study that they did for the site, analyzing both the project, the alignment, and the crossing. And their report found that the preferred crossing had the fewest impacts as well. But they identified, distances from, the features that are important to the domestic water supply. There's a cement capped well at this location. The stream, obviously the water that flows into the stream, originates from higher on the landscape, according to the professional standards that are included in the study by PWA. The stream itself initiates at this point 75 feet from the road base of Fickle Hill. And there are several features along that stream that pick up that domestic water supply. And so really we're trying to stand back from that and from any stream crossings and wetlands as far back as is possible. Key concerns that came up obviously were, the domestic water supply users were concerned about impacts there. We had one commenter say that they understood that there was a fencing that was to be included in the project. And I do want to state, for the record that we understand that still to be a part of this project. And it's my understanding is that the details of where that fencing should be located, there were several conversations between city staff and some of the neighbors about where to locate that. And ultimately the decision was that if the neighbors would prepare a proposal, the city would review that, and finding it, at the point we find it mutually agreeable that we could install that fencing as part of this project. The project did have a biological assessment. Obviously, anytime you're working in the forest, you need to pay attention to plants and critters. The biological assessment found that the proposed project would have no impacts. And again, I want to emphasize that this is largely a reuse of an existing skid trail, improving the environmental impacts of the skid trail by using better trail design as opposed to just the skid road that's out there now. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the crossing safety. The crossing will have solar and battery backup powered flashing warning signs for cars approaching to alert them to the crossing. It's at a location where there's maximum visual distance, and so this is really the safest location. Again, I just wanted to orient you to the project more so than go into detail on the the specifics of the initial study. But if you have read sections of it and you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. If you have questions about what I presented, I'd be happy to answer those. And then I know there are a number of people who are interested in providing public comment tonight.
Thank you, Director Loya. Before we move on to public comment, are there any commission questions on that staff report or on the written material? Anything you'd like to clarify at this point? Judy.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for the staff report with the good graphics, which are extremely useful. A couple of things that I was wondering about, and one process question. And the process question is that with the large number of people in attendance today, is there any way that the commission can actually see the gallery view of people watching this webinar formatted Zoom? which would be much more equivalent to a typical public meeting where we can actually see who's watching and listening, even if they're not speaking.
Yeah, unfortunately, the way that the meeting is structured, it wouldn't allow for that. People will be allowed to speak, but there's no way to access the entire attendees all at the same time.
Okay, I noticed there's not even a way to identify people who are watching. Is that correct, or am I not understanding something about the Zoom?
If you click on the participants down on the bottom bar, there's a participants
Yeah,
button.
I'm able to get the commission and you, but I'm not able to get any list of.
If you click once
Oh,
that,
okay, there you go. You click it on the right, and there it is. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
yeah. absolutely.
Okay, the substantive question has to do with the expectations for the Planning Commission tonight. So you've mentioned that we may provide a recommendation to the City Council, and that's presumably with regard to accepting the initial study as is, with the negative declaration of no potential for significant impact, or we could choose not to do that, or we could make some other kind of recommendation. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me, exactly. I mean, again, this hearing isn't legally required per se, and it's really intended to provide public an opportunity to provide additional comment. The public comment period doesn't close until February 16th, into business on February 16th. And so, you know, in some ways it may be a little premature to make a more formal recommendation. But if you, so I guess, you know, we can get into wordsmithing if you get to that point, you wish to do that. But I would recommend something along the lines of a recommendation to the council that they accept the information that's included in the initial study as, substantial evidence to the record, something to that effect.
Okay, and that could include the material in the initial study and the body of public comments that we're receiving orally and in writing by February 16th. Is
Absolutely.
that how? Okay. And then there's another thing that I'm just wondering if you could clarify that was passed over very briefly in the initial study, which is that there is no parking to be provided on the city property near that crossing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Currently, and I don't have a good map for it, but one of the commenters did include some photos of folks parking at that location. And that's a really good distinction that you bring up. This is not a trailhead. The intent is not for people to start at this location to either go down into the Sunnybury Forest or up into the community forest. It is, in fact, in part intended to remedy the fact that the primary access that people are accessing it, Trail 13.5 at that location. They should not be accessing it at that location. No one should be dropping bikes off at that point. It is not a trailhead and it shouldn't be used that way. There is a service entrance for city vehicles at that location. And, you know, unfortunately, there is somewhat of a enforcement challenge there. It's in the county, and so the county would have to enforce the parking at that location. But the idea is that if there's a better connectivity between the Sunnybury Forest, there'll be areas where there is ample parking down at the bottom of the Sunnybury Forest for people to park and start at that trailhead. And this location then would be only for crossing. So it's true there is no trailhead proposed in this project. And it is also true that people are currently using that as a trailhead, and that is illegal.
Okay, and that right of way on both sides of the road there is a county right-of-way, is that correct? Not a city right-of-way, even though the properties on both sides are city land?
That's correct. The road and the right-of-way are in the county, and we'll be obtaining encroachment permits in order to install the crossing at that location.
Okay, and finally, one set of comments related to the legality of the crossing on the north side, and it seems to be an issue that is going to come up somewhere. So if you would be willing to make some statement now before the public comment opportunities, that might be very helpful.
Can you be a little more specific about what your concern is?
I'm referring to the claim by one commenter in several letters that the trail construction on the north side of that crossing is not legal. And so I'm wondering if you can clarify the city's response to that.
Trail 13 and a half.
You know, I'm not sure what the commenter is referring to, but
we do, you know, so this is, I guess what I would say is that, you know, some of the items that were identified in public comments are also, you know, part of ongoing litigation with the city. And so I won't comment on those items. The project that we're reviewing and analyzing is the crossing and the construction of the new trail. And so I would encourage Planning Commission to, you know, focus on those areas and not enter into those areas where we have potential litigation.
okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I was so dense on what the specific was that you were talking about. I haven't had an opportunity myself to read all of the comment letters. And so it took me a bit to cue into what you were asking.
Looks like Judy's ready to ask a question of you, David.
It was the letter that Judith is talking about was actually attached to, it was at the very end of our ERR that was sent to us. So was that maybe it wasn't supposed to happen?
In attachment C?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, attachment C was submitted as a public comment to this. And I cannot guarantee that all public comment will be germane to the initial study. In fact, many of the comments that we received were, you know, affirmations of the project that also did not include any kind of context for environmental impact. And, you know, we appreciate those comments, absolutely, but, and they'll be, you know, important for the decision makers to understand, you know, the type of support or, you know, concern that neighbors have and that, you know, community members have. But this item tonight is really specifically directed towards the initial study and comments to those. And the circulation period through the 16th also is really directly targeted towards that. So people may submit comments that aren't germane to the environmental impact, germane to the you know, the topic at hand, but we still receive those comments and include them in the record.
Okay, so I have another question. So how far is the preferred option from Park Street? I mean, how far up is it? The crossing of Fickle Hill Road.
I'm going to have to look into, give me a moment. I can find that information really quickly. I
Okay.
have it on the top of my head.
I was just trying to figure out. I drove up there and was trying to figure out exactly where it is. And I don't know exactly where it is.
Yeah, the address is track mileage. It's probably 1.5 miles up from Park Street.
Oh, that far up. Okay. 1.5 miles up from Park Street. So it's way up there. So it's not exactly where you come out from. So I know where you come from the Arcata Community Forest onto Fickle Hill Road. So it's up past there even?
Considerably further.
Yeah, much further.
Oh, much further. Okay.
Here's Fickle Hill. Here's Park. Here's that, the branch that you said where you first come off of the community forest to Fickle Hill. And so you continue out, and here's the project location.
Oh, so it's way up there. Oh, that's going to be really nice. Okay.
Any other questions at this point?
I've got a question. So in respects to the design, I saw the design for the preferred crossing in attachment B, or attachment A, excuse me. As for the alternative crossing number 3, where there may be a need for a proposed retaining structure, there was nothing involved in regards of providing some sort of design for that. Was that just left out just because we have a preferred trail, the preferred crossing there at that location for the preferred crossing versus the alternative crossing? I was just asking about that. And then as for grading permit, would it be required for the section that crosses the county right of way, and that would be a county grading permit versus a city grading permit? That would be anticipated, or is it related to the overall soil disturbance for the, anywhere from, the essentially about 1/10 of an acre disturbance associated with the actual trail building process? There's also discussion in regards of the document itself in regards of amending the NTMP to essentially streamline, essentially to make sure that it's in concurrence with our existing NTMP. When will that be happening? And also in regards of potential forethought in the future, in regards of amending our NTMP to contain easier pathways for future trail development and for both pedestrian and for bikes. Is that an option? But otherwise, in regards of overall the project, I'm in strong support of this project. I'm an active user of this trail system, and I'm pretty excited to see that we're finally creating a safe crossing across Fickle Hill to get over to the Sunnybury track from the Arcata Community Forest. So from a bicyclist standpoint, from a mountain biker, this is good news, seeing this coming along. So in respects to those questions that I asked, I was just wondering what that entails.
Okay, I'm gonna do my best. You had a lot of questions, so if I've missed anything, feel free to ask me. And in terms of the grading work to construct the trail, that's all inside of the city limits. The portion that is in the county that is associated with the crossing, that will be done through an encroachment permit. I don't believe a separate grading permit is going to be required by the county. The second issue that you asked about is whether we have designs for other than just the preferred crossing. We don't have anything more detailed than the schematic. We've identified in the field the types of retaining structures that'll be necessary, and rough approximations for how much land would be disturbed and what the impacts would be associated with those, so that we could evaluate it in the initial study, but we don't have plan drawings for them yet.
Okay.
I've forgotten entirely what your third and fourth points were, but I'd be happy to answer those.
The amendment to the NTMP to make
Right.
sure that we're, essentially.
That is part of the discussion. One of the items that was really identified through this process was the need to ensure that, our trail system, the maintenance, management, expansion of, is, codified in a way that is CEQA cleared. We have all of these trails laid out in our bike and ped master plan. We're definitely incorporating them into the forest management plan and updating that. The NTMP is probably the wrong house to put these in, but we definitely want to include some higher level policy documents that take into account, a more detailed consideration for trails that we're going to be building over the course of, the next several years. In particular because, to do this level of, public engagement on every 1,600 linear foot trail section would be, a real challenge. And so we see a real, conservation of investment by, consolidating those reviews.
Yeah.
Did you have another point too that I'd forgotten about?
No, that was essentially it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's essentially just how the NTMP can play in, or the forest management plan can play into future projects in regards of the ease of the permitting and moving forward with trail development as into the future effectively. So thank you.
Yeah, no, really good points. Thank you.
Who's next? All right, if there's no more commission questions at this point of the staff report and or the project analysis, then we'll open this up to public comment. And seeing that we have 41 attendees, we're going to have to limit everybody to 2 minutes, which will still be a chunk of time because of the time in between. It's not quite as efficient on Zoom as it is at City Hall. So please state your points clearly and be as brief as you can. If you don't need 2 minutes, please don't take them, because this can go on for a long time. If you've already submitted letters, we have them. We've read nearly all of them, and we will get to them. So rereading a letter isn't necessarily helpful to us. Referring to maybe your main point or two would be great. And with that, we'll be keeping track of time, and we'll open up. David, I don't know quite how the queue works. I guess it's just by how they've signed up on this list of attendees. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll run through the list, starting, at the top and running down, but we'll make sure we work through everyone.
Okay, so in other words, is Sean Robinson our first opportunity for public comment?
Yes. Okay, Sean, you are live and ready to speak.
All right, good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Sean Robertson. I'm a resident of Arcata, the team director of the Humboldt Composite High School Mountain Bike Club, and a board member of the Redwood Coast Mountain Bike Association. I just wanted to speak to my support for the proposed trail segment improvement in the Arcata Community Forest Sunnybrae Tract. I believe it will be a significant benefit to our community in connecting the Arcata and Sunnybrae trail networks. And I recommend that the Planning Commission and City Council accept the findings of the recent environmental impact report so the much delayed Ridge Trail project can be completed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Moving on to Michael.
Okay, Michael, yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
Go for it, Michael.
Thank you to the commission. My name is Michael Proul. I'm with the Humboldt Trails Council, and we've had a number of discussions among the board members about this trail, and we are all strongly in favor of it. So I would certainly encourage the commission to accept the report that David Loya has outlined. I'm very pleased that a relatively safe crossing could be found on Fickle Hill Road. I know that is difficult, and that's it. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to hiking this trail.
Thank you, Michael. And Uri Driscoll.
Oops. Okay, Uri, you're You're on?
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Yeah, I've been a supporter of this concept for many, many years. We've done fundraising. We've donated several $1,000s ourselves to it, and had sought to be a part of the design and development of this. However, we've run into some problems with the method that the city has started this. We feel like there's some issues, significant issues that really need to be addressed. I've submitted some comments. Hopefully you've all been able to review them to make our argument that we really, it's a very fair argument to forward this project with a mitigated negative declaration. The protection of the waterway and the domestic water system is of utmost priority, and a trail of this nature would, into a pristine area, bringing trail traffic and history of illegal trail building is quite extensive. In the traffic issues, I live right here on this road, and the traffic issues are very serious and haven't been studied here, and I really encourage that to be done. And a point Ms. Meyer made and was trying to get at, that north side access has not been permitted as a trail access and is, as David said, being used illegally currently. It will continue to be used as a trailhead or trail access, off-road trail access, whatever you want to call it. And I think the downstream roadway really needs to be adapted to encourage more public safety, whether that's signage or speed controls or whatever that would look like. I'm not totally sure, but I think those issues have not been addressed in this initial study. And with the mitigated neg deck, that would be necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uri, for wrapping up. And now we'll move on to Steve Jones.
Okay.
Steve, are you there? Do you hear us? Are you jumping in?
It's telling me he's going to join soon.
Okay, shall we move on to Karina?
Give me just 1 second here. Steve, are you there? Okay, we'll move on.
All right, Karina, go for it.
Hi, as a Arcata resident, I'm thrilled to see this moving. As a longtime volunteer trail steward, I'm ecstatic to see this finally moving forward, and I look forward to hiking this trail. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Karina, for your comments. Steve Jones, if you're still out there, you can jump back in, and we'll move on to Michael Dronkers.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I just want to point out that for people who are in the storm who are on mobile Zoom right now, we cannot see the Zoom attendee list. We don't actually know what's going on. So I didn't even know that I was in the queue until you called my name. I just wanted to point that out for everybody else who's without internet, without power. But going forward, I am thrilled that the EIR came back as good as it did. I live very close to the Sunnybrae Forest. I'm about 3 minutes away. I'm over in Bayside. I'm up there probably 2 or 3 times a week with my dog, with my wife, with my kids. It's awesome. Obviously, the public health benefit of having an extended trail is enormous, from fitness, from mental health benefits, forest therapy, et cetera, et cetera. But I wanted to address, as a runner, as a long distance runner, we in Arcata usually have to go down to Eureka, to the McKay track, to find a real long span of trail. It's easier on your knees. It's not redundant. It's just a better running experience to have a long trail in front of you. Whereas the Beef Loop is pretty short. ACF is pretty short. Stringing these all together, you can actually put a real good training run together. So I wanted to, again, voice my emphatic support for this, and also the ecotourism benefits of having a nice long trail in Arcata. When we can all travel safely again, this will be a thing that will bring people to our awesome community. So again, I'm in support. I love a long trail. Glad the EIR is clean, and that is all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael. And next up is Melanie.
Hi, my name is Melanie Bettenhausen, and I also live in Sunnybray, close to the Sunnybray Forest, and use both the Arcata Forest Trail. My kids and I volunteer with the Trails Council, and we have firsthand observation of the impact of illegal trail use. And so I'm happy to see the EIR came back negative, and I'm hoping that whatever comes next will help mitigate some of that illegal trail use. We see portions of the trail where people just make their own path everywhere, and then there's runoff associated with that. And I would imagine that the damage from that illegal use is worse than not doing anything at all. So I just wanted to express that I am in support of moving forward with this, and also would like to make sure that those issues can be addressed at some point, even if it's not appropriate for this particular piece of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Next up is Dan Calderwood.
Go ahead and unmute, Dan.
Okay.
There you go. We can hear you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Like Karina, I've been a longtime trail steward volunteer, probably for about 8 years. So I've worked with Darius and his crew, making a lot of the trails in the Sunnybray Forest and a few new trails and improving trails in the community forest. So I too am in support of the connector trail. The EIR being negative is a real positive to move that forward. I was obviously the way the connector trail was laid out was very sensitive to neighbor water issues, and by looking at it, it's obviously well away from any groundwater issues and takes the cleanest and best path forward. So I too am looking forward to having that connector trail, and as a previous speaker spoke about, a long trail that we can take from one end of the town to the other. So thank you for your time and all your work, and I look forward to walking the trails with you.
Thank you, Dan. Next up is caller and user 1 is what it says here. Do you hear us? I don't know how to call you out otherwise. Is this going to work, David?
I think so. Let's see.
Can you let that person know that they're queued up?
Yeah, they may be having a hard time figuring out how to unmute. I believe it's *6.
I thought.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
perfect. It's your.
Hello. Thank you. We don't have no power, so we can get on Zoom. This is Gwellen Poliaga. I'm a resident of Arcata and live nearby the Sunnybray Forest. We use it regularly for running, riding our bikes, and hiking. My daughter has started mountain biking recently and is very excited about riding through this trail segment. So I want to encourage this commission to approve the EIR as stated and look forward to having a ridge trail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we're on to Jennifer Savage. You're up. We can hear you.
Great. Hi, Jennifer Savage. I'm a resident in Manila and a frequent hiker in both the Arcata community and the Sunnybray Forest. I work for the Surfrider Foundation, and while I'm speaking as an individual tonight, I do want to note that my professional work constantly involves balancing resource protection with public access, so I'm quite familiar with the concept. And it's so great to see that the EIR shows no negative impacts with regards to this long overdue project. My son lives in Arcata, and it's such a wonderful thing to be able to come into town and go for these hikes with him on my lunch hour or for a longer stretch on the weekends. And the idea of having the two forests connected is just so overdue and really will create such an enhanced experience for people lucky enough to live here and those able to visit in the future. And, as a last note, it's often the case that those who are lucky enough to own property in beautiful places tend to push back against increased public access. I encourage the commission to follow the science and to recommend that the City Council accept the findings and approve the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And our next up is Matthew Hurst.
Okay, Matthew, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, I am a neighbor to the trail. I live on the north side of Fickle Hill Road, adjacent to Trail 13.5. And I'm speaking on behalf of the neighbors in that vicinity in terms of specific things that we find that the city hasn't addressed. I think this initial study that you call it is fairly new to us in terms of how it's progressed over time. Things have slowly changed over time, and the city has not met with us. The city has not met with us about this specific plan. And so, David Loya, I would hope that you would meet with the residents in the area and kind of help us discuss ways of dealing with privacy. Many of us are on higher ground with respect to the trail. And so we can't do anything about the privacy because we are sitting up on higher ground. But I think the city could do a lot with greenery or fencing to help with the privacy issue. And we're also very quickly interested in how we're going to deal with bicyclists being dropped off, and also about trees being cut. And lastly, I guess the last thing, we met on Sunday, we just want to have a clear communication and understanding with the city of Arcata as this goes forward. We've always been in support of the trail. We just want our concerns to be addressed.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. And next is Linya.
Hi there, this is actually Lanya's husband, Eamon Engber. And I am a Sunnybray resident. We live down at the bottom of the Sunnybray section. And we just wanted to voice our support for this trail system. We are frequent hikers, joggers, and walkers. And having the connectivity to move over to the Arcata Forest side from the Sunnybray Forest side really gives the potential for a much longer outing than you would otherwise have. If you're stuck on either end, you're forced to do loops. So it's a major benefit. I'd also like to voice my support for the location of that trail on a previous skid road. I'm an ecologist who works on the federal side locally, and we do a lot of work on previous skid roads because that's an area where you have the least environmental impact. So I just want to applaud the group for pursuing those areas where you're going to have the minimal environmental effects. On top of that, there are trails on both sides leading up to this crossing. So I think the concern that this is going to add entirely new or different usage is maybe a little bit overblown. I think what this does is actually provide a safe crossing for those who are likely already in the vicinity or sometimes going up and down in areas where they maybe shouldn't be. This provides a much safer location for that user access. End of report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Russell Jones.
Okay, Russell.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Russell Jones. I live on Fickle Hill Road. I've lived there 40 years. Below my property is a very large illegal bike path going into the forest in the Sunnybray side. I'm in support of having a trail go through but I'm also in support of protecting the water supply for all of the people that get water from them. We have had in history 4 or 5 meetings of which we've never seen the minutes of. And so I would urge that there be a mitigated negative declaration until 2 issues are resolved. One, the water supply protected with a clear plan of what's going to happen there. And 2, the traffic studies that have not been completed. We were promised there would be a line of sight study through there by the city engineer. I've never seen it. There's a 4.5 degree grade right there. The line of sight is impossible to do. Caltrans does not allow a parallel trail along a road unless you are way back from it and have barriers in between the road and yourself. And so I urge that you have a mitigated negative declaration until those 2 issues are really resolved. Issue 1, the water being absolutely protected. And number 2, immense traffic study and safety. My house has been hit 3 times going down that road, and it's wet and it's a big downhill grade and there is no line of sight. When you're on that percentage of a grade and the distance that you have to have for line of sight is quite large, a lot longer than it's shown on this. Furthermore, on the map that is included in the report, it is not 75 feet from the road. We have measured it. I've tromped through there. My wife's tromped through there and other people. And the actual distance that the spring is from the road is about 35 feet, not 75.
You're muted, Dan.
Sorry, thank you. Russell, is that it? We'll move on. Michael. Michael, you're muted. There you go.
Hello, my name's Michael O'Dowd, and I worked for the city and did a little bit of maintenance there with Darius on the ES trails. I'm excited that the EIR report came back in a positive way. I feel like the water priority obviously is a big concern to everybody involved. Part of the trail, having a trail that's dedicated, it can really help us allow the trail to be used, but keep the people where we want them to, where we intend them to use those trails. So I think this is a great step in that direction in order for us to be able to give people access and a pathway up through this. My own personal use as a mountain biker, I'm going back and forth with my family. And because of that, I'm encouraging my family to leave the car at home. So I'm hoping that this connector trail will be a positive influence for people to leave their cars at home and to be able to only accessing this connector via foot or bike. So I feel like that's what's going on within my family, and I can feel that that might be a positive effect for other people as well, so that parking won't be as much of an issue. I'm excited for this to move forward. I feel like a lot of people who are in the community who use those trails have been expecting this to proceed and to have use of this trail. And I think that we're taking all the necessary steps to make it happen. And I'm encouraged that we're listening to all sides of the issue to make sure that we make the right decision. And I applaud all you guys who are doing the work with the reports. And that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for the work that you do.
Thank you, Michael. Christine West, you're up.
Christine is having the same issue as one of our earlier speakers. I'm going to attempt to promote her to panelist due to the version she's using. Perfect. There you are.
Unmute, and it's all yours, Christine.
You're still muted.
You're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just wanting to, I'll keep it short and sweet. I just wanted to voice my support for the project. And as a Sunnybray resident, my family and I, my husband, my daughter and I use the trail regularly. And mostly besides the in Richmond of being able to use the trail and connect that to other trails in the forest, I'm really in support of the safety that this increases, because connecting across Fickle Hill has not been a safe option for a lot of folks. I also really appreciate the residents that are more localized to that connector area and their voices too, to make sure that we can consider their concerns. I've read the initial study and it appears to me to be pretty rigorous. So I appreciate all that effort as well that everybody's putting in. So I just wanted to voice my support and thanks to everybody here today.
Thank you, Christine. John Sroka, you're up next.
Second to move Christine back. Christine, I apologize. I may bump you off the meeting. If I do, please feel free to join again. Okay, John, you're up.
Hey, John.
All right. Okay. I didn't realize I was muted. Hello, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for the preservation of the forest lands of what this is part of this initiative. I am John Soroka. I'm a resident of Arcata, and I am a resident close to that crossing. The one thing I would like to make sure is considered is there has been, as stated, numerous cars pulling into driveways to drop bikers off and sometimes even to park and chat. And I think the education of the public, both in any maps that are published and any references to this trail crossing, indicate that there is no parking there, that it is a trail crossing, and definitely leave the car at home. I like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Dennis Rael, you're up next.
Okay, Dennis, you can unmute now.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Yeah, I wanted to thank everybody for all the work they did. So excited to see this next step in the trail.
Dennis, you're very quiet. If you can try and adjust your mic, that'd be great.
Do you hear us, Dennis?
Okay, why don't you try one more time, Dennis?
Hello, hello.
We can hear you now. Perfect.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, we'll have to accept your written comments, Dennis. We're having some technical difficulties hearing you.
Okay, it looks like we're moving on to Peggy.
Yes, I just would like to, this is Larry Bowalda, by the way, not Peggy. But I too am a supporter of the Ridge Trail. And I was just wanting to check to see for those who are present on the Zoom, since we can't see them or we don't know they're standing, if there is a way of perhaps having a show of hands, because there oftentimes is a silent majority that may not want to vocalize their preferences one way or the other. But thank you, everybody, for what you're doing. We all appreciate it. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next up is a phone number.
7454. Go ahead and unmute.
It's all you.
Hello, my name is Kemp Sawatsky. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. I go by Ken Sawatsky, non-Esquire, and I spend a lot of my time in the public forums, in the supervisor chambers, every single meeting, as today I had about 6 hours. So I appreciate your consideration of this. Nothing but support from everybody regarding the concept of the trail. But I do see some potential problems. And I'm not quite understanding. People say, well, the EIR was great and fantastic. Maybe David Loya could answer this later, a question that the public would like to know. Has an EIR been done on this particular part of this project? I thought this was going under a negative deck, which is a scale. You have your mitigated negative deck in between. So I'm not quite understanding where that is. I think you're probably going to have to have a minimum of a mitigated negative deck on this one. The public basically speaks by their actions, and their actions have been, according to what I've heard in testimony today, is that basically this is used as a trailhead, and that's been, I believe, admitted by staff. You won't see that tendency to change. People who want to go a short run just down the hill or want to pick people up partway. So unless you're dealing with this with a mitigated negative deck, taking all that into consideration and a traffic study and everything that goes with this, I think you're in for problems here. My understanding is, as you mentioned, it isn't litigation. My understanding is, unfortunately, there was what I call gun jumping happened here, and the trail got put in functionally before it was permitted. And that's always a negative thing, and you can understand the community with that, the local people. I think you've heard their angst. So I will support them. I think you should do a mitigated negative deck on this one. And you may have to design a crossing that is not a standard little stoplight thing there for the people. I think that's a real safety hazard. So thank you for my opportunity to speak on this today.
Thank you. And we're moving on to Amy Uecki.
It's actually Reese Hughes, Amy's husband.
Yes.
For the last 8 years, I've been coordinating the Arcata Volunteer Trail Stewards, and we've done a lot of work on the trails in the community forest and in the Sunny Brae Forest, including stretches of the Ridge Trail. And in all of my time, it's rare to have this level of scrutiny and analysis for a 1,600-foot section of trail. And reading the EIR and the plans, it's clear to me that, and based on my experience, that this has been thoughtfully aligned to minimize impacts, and it will be constructed in a way to minimize erosion. I just think it's a high-quality trail that's been examined so thoroughly. I think there are some educational things that can be done to minimize the inappropriate use of the upper access points. But I'm hoping that you will forward this EIR to the council with your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Reese. David, it looks as though we have a repeat.
We've got Jesse Lopez.
Yeah, let's move on to Jesse Lopez.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'd like to just voice my support in favor of this connection trail. I think moving forward could help alleviate some of the problems that are being presented with the unregulated use of the connection. And if we were to further develop that, I hope that could alleviate those impacts that are currently happening with the way it is right now, being unregulated. I think this would be awesome for our community to have that established connection between our two forests. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. David, I don't see anybody else in queue except a repeat. Do you? Oh, here comes some. Okay. AP, you're up,
Okay,
AP.
Hi, this is Abigail Porter. Can you guys all hear me?
Very well.
Great. So I am also a resident in close proximity to the trail. And I too am in complete support with the concept of the trail and am super enthralled with actually the use of it as long as it's getting used properly. I loved the comment that someone left at leave your car at home. Love that too. Unfortunately, it's not what's happening at all. And so we have a major safety issue with people dropping off and parking and pulling into driveways, blocking residents from being able to leave or enter their own private homes. And on top of that, we have a safety issue. And so we've talked about the preferred crossing as the red dotted line. Initially, David Loya had great detailed imagery mapping. I appreciate that too. We all received one, thank you. And the red, you know, we met a few months back to talk about the yellow, which cut into the embankment and easement encroachment of that private property to the right of it. The blue now was discussed, and it's the alternative crossing option 3. It comes out at the mouth of where the county entrance is for city vehicles to maintain trail and everything. And then it crosses Fickle Hill there. At that point, that is the best visibility for crossing. We have issues coming out of our own driveways with traffic. I mean, we have to have there's a blind corner here. And so the most visible crossing is actually option number 3. And, you know, it would take some buildup is what I'm hearing with soil, and it sounds like a big financial endeavor. But if the EIR passed and everything moving forward, it doesn't affect environmental impacts, then I don't understand why there's not mention of plans for the alternative crossings yet. And that also, you know, for all of the people that have been using the trail already illegally, there's a huge community of people that are in favor of this trail. That's great. Can you guys all pass along that it's not a trailhead for us residents that are here? Because it is posing a huge safety risk for all of us. So with that said, thanks for all the work that you guys have done. It seems like there's been extensive research into it all, and I'd just like us to consider some of the alternative crossings. And I also wanted to know too about, you know, what the trees are that you guys are talking about cutting. It mentions it in the report, and we just wanted to kind of have a, you know, more in-depth conversation about the trees. It mentions an average of 14.8 inch diameter and which trees those are. You know, I guess I just wanted to learn a little bit more about what it entails for the preferred crossing, and how you're going to walk against traffic, how much into the embankment that you're going to cut into to create a safe path to walk against the traffic to then cross Fickle Hill once you've walked against traffic. I've probably used my time, so I'll lay down the baton there.
Okay, thank you very much. Are we moving on to Mitch? There we go. Mitch, you're up.
Hello, thank you. Yes, I'm a huge supporter of this trail for a lot of the reasons that are mentioned. I appreciate all the work and the finding of the no negative impact on the trail. But the main points that I support this trail is really just revolves around the idea that a trail like this is the essence of the community we live in, not only in Humboldt County, but in Arcata and the surrounding areas. A trail like this would not only enhance experiences to be able to get on longer outings, but also improve physical and mental health. And above all else, the trail like this is a clear a provider of more safety for trails, not only with eliminating the Fickle Hill Road crossing, but also helping with the crowds and dispersing out people on the trail by making longer destinations possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitch. And next we have Steve Salzman.
Hello, Steve Salzman here, resident of Arcata. I'm in support of the trail system for 2 main reasons. One of them, a safer crossing of Fickle Hill is really would be helpful. It's dangerous trying to find both ends of that trail as you cut across. And the trails that are in existence now are all poached trails and unofficial trails, and those tend to get dispersed and create more of an impact than one official trail. So I think if we build one official trail, a lot of those poaches are going to go away, and we should have less erosion and a higher safety corridor for us mountain bikers. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Steve. Glenn Tinsmith, you're up next.
Go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm unmuted. I'm one of the trail stewards, and I just wanted to point out that a lot of the time we are actually removing bad trails and not always building new trails. And I know of several bad trails that will just go away when this trail is finished. And I know that we're going to be probably some of the people removing them. Also, I read the entire EIR and I'm very impressed with the detail and the level of care. I don't read a lot of them, but this one was minimal or no impact on almost everything. So thank you for everybody doing the work to make this happen. That's all.
Thank you, Glenn. Chuck Powell. Go ahead and unmute, Chuck.
Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Great. Thank you. And I just wanted to say.
You muted again, Chuck.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I just wanted to say that I am in support of the trail and, excuse me, and having been a community forest trail user since 1990 and have the Sunnybrae Forest Trails since their construction, I've always been impressed with the official construction and maintenance of the forest trail systems. And quite honestly, I don't have any reason to believe that this connecting segment won't be constructed and maintained to the same standards that the city applies elsewhere. And as a trail user, I'm looking forward to the time when I can walk between those two disconnected forests at this point in time. And I also want to share my appreciation for the due diligence that the city's shown in completing the EIR, which has negative findings, and I would endorse any of the trail crossings that are presented based on what would work best for the residents in the area and the trail users themselves. And also, it's, in my mind, it's better to permit this and have the city take control of what's going on there now in its official capacity and install proper and appropriate signage regarding the use of the trails and the parking areas for the safety and benefit of everybody. So once again, I do support this connection. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. David, I see no more raised hands. Do you?
I don't see any.
We just got one. Rami, you're up.
Hello. I would like to thank everyone for the work on this project. Again, the clear designation of crossing increases safety. The EIR showing no negative impact shows impressive due diligence on the part of all who have dedicated so much time to this. And as has been mentioned, I think the more negative impact is the unauthorized trails that are created without this clear, well laid out, safe option for many of the users. I think it'll improve health and quality. And again, I also appreciate what so many of the neighbors have said and hope that this can be a win-win for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Seeing no more hands raised. One more just came up. Two more came up. All right, Rick, you're up.
Hello, I'm Rick Schlexer, and I'm a resident of Sunnybrae and a close, I live close to the Sunnybrae Forest Trailhead, and I'm also a volunteer trail steward, and I support the completion of the connector trail. I'd like to point out that the city of Arcata has shown that it can construct trails ethically and in a non-environmentally degradation process. And considering that the existing trail alignment, which I have hiked, follows an existing skid road, it seems to me that the existing skid road probably has a more negative effect on the watersheds than that which would be built by the city. So I support this, and I really appreciate the work that David Loy has done, and I encourage the Planning Commission to support this trail as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Russell Jones, you're up.
I will note to the chair for point of order. I think Russell may have spoke before, so if you want to take a second round, and let me just confirm that with him.
I would like to move on to Nottingham unless Russell has a partner that's using his line or something like that.
Okay, well, let's just check in on that real quick. Russell, you got a square with us. Have you gone before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, we're gonna put you back in the gallery and let others who have not spoken yet. Okay.
Okay, Jay Nottingham, you're up.
Go ahead and unmute.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Can.
Sorry, got some echo. I'm a resident here on the Fickle Hill Trail that you're proposing, and I'm looking right at the map here, and it's not too far from my approach to my home. The trail seems pretty small in the distance you want to change it, honestly. And I live near a tight spot on this road where that big tree comes out. And I'll tell you what, I've been passed by people on this road. We all know how Fickle Hill people drive. So, for me, above most of it all, is I get my water source also from this Fickle Hill. So water sources are very important to me. But this safety is a big issue because, we have people blocking driveways. We have people turning around. I'm worried about the garbage. How well are these people coming up? If that's an old logging road, from what I know about logging around here, that's probably really steep. So the last caller that called in too, there's a lot of erosion probably coming from those old logging roads that are going to be addressed. So, to me, 60 feet on the top end of this trail for a crossing that the neighbors prefer doesn't make much difference to me. And so I don't know why the big deal is here. And again, alternate route crossing option number 3 is the one that has not been talked about, but the ones that live right next to this trail prefer that one, honestly. So I don't know. Think about that, and thanks for having me, and thanks for all your hard work. I'm not opposed to the trail, but it needs to be done in the way that we can all agree upon it. So thanks. Bye.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more new callers, we'll give Russell 30 seconds for a quick wrap here.
Okay, go ahead and unmute.
Okay. I don't know what the data is that Pacific Watershed used, but the location of the water source and the spring complex is incorrect on the map. Absolutely incorrect on the map. And if you do the alternate crossing number 3, the county has said that they needed to have, you cannot just pop up on the road, and they would need to have at least a 15-foot platform out there, which would in essence put the dirt right into our spring. And they already tried to put a trail through there once before that was illegal, and they already cut down a big tree and dumped it down into our spring, the city did. And so I think this needs to go as a mitigated negative declaration about our water, because that is more important. If you're talking about health and longevity in life, you try doing it without water.
Okay, thank you very much, Russell. Seeing no more speakers, we will close the public comment portion of the meeting and move on to commission deliberations on this topic. Would any commissioners? Yes, Julie, please.
Regarding recommending approval to the council tonight, which I'm prepared to do, but since the public comment period doesn't end until February 16th, I feel like we should give people time to comment before it goes to the city council and be a part of this. And also maybe the city can use that time to address the neighbors, their concerns. Seems like they feel like they're not being heard. And maybe somehow this whole thing can be a win-win. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Who else? Judith.
Yeah, I should say first that I'm really, really happy that the city's going ahead with plans to make this crossing happen after all this time. I'm excited that it's apparently going to happen soon. I'm also a little bit of a process geek, which makes me say that yes, we should definitely not make a recommendation to the city council until that public comment period has ended, even though this is not a legally required process to consult the Planning Commission on this one. I'd love to see the rest of the comments. I'd love to give the city time to address the concerns that neighbors have expressed. And so I think what we should do as a commission right now would be to talk a little bit more and then continue this item to a date that perhaps David can recommend to us after the end of that public comment period, when we'll be able to look at the full body of the comments and when the city may actually have an opportunity to address some of those design issues that appear to be unresolved according to our comments today, but that appeared to be well resolved in the initial study. So I'd recommend that we continue this item and return to it in a few weeks.
Thank you, Judith. Scott?
Yes, I would voice agreement with Julie and Judith's perspective on matching our recommendation perhaps to the end of the public comment period. Just want to also add, though, that I live as well in this neighborhood and adjacent to the forest. And while I appreciate the city is working to resolve issues with the landowners, I pass by this location multiple times a day. I use the community forest multiple times a week, and I'm absolutely sure that completing this trail crossing is going to make it safer for everyone on Fickle Hill, as well as opening up the access. So I'd definitely be in support of this project.
Can I jump in just real quick for a quick response on the idea of continuing the hearing and having the Planning Commission look at it again?
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to hear on that.
So the notice originally posted both this hearing and the City Council's February 17th hearing. The comment period runs through the 16th, and the City Council will be taking this up on the 17th. And as I mentioned, and I think as Judy had acknowledged, that it's not a legally required recommendation. There's no process that points to the Planning Commission providing a recommendation. And so I just want to let the Planning Commission know that it really will be up to the City Council if they decide to send this back after that circulation period for a recommendation. It'll be up to that body to decide to do that. If you do set a continuation, we will certainly hold another hearing. The next available after the comment period ends would be February 23rd. But the point may be moot at that time. The city council may have adopted the project at that point. This is the hearing again. Tonight's meeting was really to allow the comment period, an opening for people to express their concerns, orally.
Judith, please.
Yeah, is there any way that we could, in effect, make a recommendation that the city council take all of the testimony tonight directly into account in their process? Typically, city council members don't actually read all of those communications addressed to the planning commission or watch our hearings. They have their own. And so, I think the only way I would be willing to make a recommendation right now would be if they were to, if we recommend that they actually watch this hearing and read those comments that came to us.
Yeah, absolutely. All of the public comment that was included written into the record will be forwarded on to the city council for their consideration. And in addition, because we're taking oral comment, the intent is to include this in the record. Staff's going to provide a summary, a synopsis of the comments, and include those as well in the administrative record for the initial study that we're conducting here. And so, and again, the planning commission doesn't necessarily need to make a recommendation tonight. And if you did, again, my recommendation would be that you accept the information in the initial study and the supporting documents, public comment, that you accept that that you recommend they accept that into the public record.
So, pardon me, David. So really what we would be making a recommendation on is just the science of this environmental review that's sitting in front of us.
Exactly.
And the public comment would be folded into that as part of the package. Do we agree with the science that's in this document? Location of the trail, how they sculpted this whole thing. And there was one comment that's pointed out, of course, there's a lot of conversation and mitigation and some more public testimony to be heard. Concerns about trees, concerns about water, concerns about safety. However, if we're just looking at the science and following the science on where is the best place for this linkage to go, that's what this document's about. And that's what we would be recommending to the city council, that we agree with the science of this initial study.
Yeah, essentially that you find that this is substantial evidence into the record. And I will point out to the commissioners too, because there were several, public comments made that, will absolutely at the staff level follow up on all of these comments to address them, to research them and ensure that the document contains accurate record. There's some questions about whether or not the maps were accurate, et cetera. And so we'll follow up with all of those, and also to encourage the public to reach out to me directly. As I had mentioned, previously, there are some matters that are not going to be, that I won't be able to discuss just because of the pending litigation. But for all intents and purposes, if it's not a part of that pending litigation, my door isn't open. My phone is available. Hopefully one day my door will be open, but the public is more than welcome to reach out to me directly and talk through the concerns that they have, and ultimately we will respond to all of these comments through our initial study process.
Can I just quickly ask, there's a concrete capped well that's on city property, and it appears to be connected somehow to some of the residential water systems. Is that true? Or, why is there a capped well there? Whose is it? Does that mean it's out of service? There also appears to be another well that looks like it's virtually right on the property line. Is that part of the neighborhood water system?
I believe that all of those features that are on that figure 9 were identified as part of either historic or ongoing domestic water sources. I don't personally, on the, at my disposal right now have detailed information on those water sources. What I do know is that several properties had deeded access to a water source. It's my understanding that none of the water sources are actually in the location of that deeded access, but that these are existing historic uses for neighboring properties on this property. And I think it is the the city's intent to continue to work with those the owners, the nearby owners that have those water sources to come up with solutions. One of the items that I mentioned tonight and was also mentioned by a public member about fencing. I think we're still waiting for a fencing plan, and we'll work directly with folks that are interested in that fencing to ensure that it is in a mutually agreeable location. So I hope that answers the question. There's some information that's in the initial study, and I can certainly, if that's relevant to the decision-making process, we will include more information if you think that's warranted.
Kimberly, please.
I just had a question. So although it sounds like you're not looking for a recommendation from the commission, are we able to make a recommendation? I wanted to say that I concur with Julie and Judith, and I was thinking that if there was a recommendation that there might be further exploration on option 3 and give an opportunity up to the 16th for feedback and possibly look at a later date of the 23rd so that there could be more opportunity of neighbors engaging.
Yeah, you certainly can make that recommendation, and you can certainly continue the item. But again, the city council is taking the item up on the 17th. And so if they make a decision, that action of yours may be moot at that point. But certainly if I'm not gonna, you're the boss. You tell me if you want to continue the hearing. Certainly isn't, in my professional opinion, warranted or necessary. The decision is, next going to the city council, but wanted to ensure that you have the opportunity. So the agenda item was listed as, make a recommendation if you choose.
Other comments? John?
Well, it seems like since this is on track to go to the city council, that whether we make a recommendation or not is irrelevant. And I don't know how it happened that it is going to city council before we had a chance to thoroughly digest it. There are a couple open questions, at least a couple, that the city council will have to wrestle with. I think it would be helpful to them to have us look at it before it goes to them, so we can give an actual positive recommendation. If that can't happen, then my suggestion would be to simply not make a recommendation at all.
Yeah, this is an unusual situation. We wouldn't typically have this type of meeting unless the Planning Commission had a specific role in the recommendation process. Many of our permit or actions that aren't permits require a Planning Commission recommendation to the City Council, and those specifically require that you make a recommendation on the subject matter of the environmental document. This is akin to a souped up scoping meeting, and the agenda item was listed with the possibility of providing a recommendation in the event that the Planning Commission wished to do so. If we didn't list it that way, then you could have gotten to the point where you wanted to make a recommendation, and I would have to tell you, I'm sorry, you can't. We didn't list the agenda item that way. So I tried to keep this as flexible as possible for the Planning Commission, still provide for this unusual opportunity for the public to provide public comment in a process where the Planning Commission really doesn't have a formal role. And so I understand the confusion, and I apologize if that's frustrating, but we felt the benefit of providing the public additional access to this, to this document and this process was outweighed the costs of the confusion associated with having this meeting.
So that said, David, if the commission felt strongly about the thoroughness and accuracy of this initial study, we have the option to give a recommendation towards the city council that would be probably a boost to the project, a little momentum. It might, you know, they don't need to listen to, I mean, there's nothing official about it, as David says, but in terms of momentum, it would be the nudge, if anything, in my analysis of this opportunity here. It doesn't sound like the commission's heading that direction. I'm just wanting to flesh out what our options are here. Any other comments? Commissioner Figueroa, do you have anything to say on this at this point?
Pretty much my comment is in reference again to the public, particularly the individuals that live within the community adjacent to this potential development, is the traffic safety concerns. You know, do we have enough time to actually truly evaluate that from a SECO standpoint? You know, because I was actually, today I did take time today to actually go out and visit the site and look at drainage and look at line of sight and so forth. And, you know, in some respects, alternative number 3 does look like the best line of sight per se. But again, I'm not a transportation engineer. So, you know, do we have the facility, the capability to do such analysis in this short window or subsequent to answer these questions? Other than that, you know, it's kind of difficult to, you know, make a full support in respects of not having heard all the comments, all the concerns and so forth that clearly need to be addressed. So that's pretty much at this point. I'm in support of this project, but I definitely see some gaps in regards of traffic safety, you know, the potential water quality concerns related to the domestic diversion downslope, and related fencing. What the fencing is going to actually do is it's basically strictly exclusion from that area. And, you know, what other effects that may potentially have for wildlife, for instance. So there's just still a couple little gaps, you know, in regards to nearing perfection. But that's pretty much all I have to really say at this point.
If I could just address some of those comments in particular, because Commissioner Figueroa appears to be indicating that there's a gap in the analysis, which I don't believe there is.
Yeah, oh, please. Yes, David.
Okay.
Please
Thank you.
comment.
So in terms of the water quality impacts, the Pacific Watershed affiliates did conduct a study of the area. They looked at the drainage of each of the 3 potential crossings, as well as the route for that follows largely the existing skid trail. And they came to the conclusion that it would improve water quality to do the project based on the existing conditions versus the post-project conditions. And they recommended that the preferred crossing would have less water quality impacts to the surface diversions, the domestic water diversions of the 3 types. I think one of the commenters mentioned that they felt like option 3 may have better line of sight, but that it would have a higher impact on their water quality. And I think that was supported by PWA as well. In terms of the traffic safety, we did not conduct a transportation study, so there's no analysis of level of service or VMT, anything of that nature. This isn't a transportation project per se. And in effect, it just makes a connection between existing uses. But the encroachment permit, which is also included, the encroachment permit application rather, which is included as part of the the body of information that supports this initial study did evaluate and show that all three of those crossings have more than line of sight necessary for safe crossing. And so balancing between the fact that, the safety factor, one may have longer line of sight, but the safety factor still meets with design standards, and the fact that the preferred crossing has lower water quality impacts. That's how we ultimately arrived at that as the preferred crossing. And in fact, it was developed as a third option initially, the other two alternatives being the first routes that were considered with the community. And to the, to the fencing, again, the fencing is in part of the litigation. So there's a recommendation that, that the proponents or that the neighbors propose a fencing location. I think, I wasn't involved in the early discussions, but that there were several different options, all I think rejected by one side or the other that were discussed previously. And we're waiting for a new design to be proposed that we can, further discuss. And I'll certainly reach out to the, to those parties that are interested to have that discussion. But I did want to clear the record that I believe the concerns you raised are addressed effectively in the initial study.
Okay. Yeah, the preferred trail, essentially, I noticed that essentially versus option three would have to have that trail that parallels the road and then essentially requires some sort of retaining structure, then thus more disturbed areas. And so hence that's why the preferred option is the preferred option versus option three, ultimately from water quality standpoint.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And not only from a construction standpoint, but also on an ongoing maintenance as well.
Yeah, understood.
John, please.
Well, I feel slightly reassured by what David had just pointed out. But when this goes to the city council, probably the same questions will be raised. And hopefully the city staff will be able to have enough background information available for the city council to so that they'll be able to make an informed decision, not be caught off guard.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another motivation for this meeting, is to make sure that we have all of the issues out on the table so that we can make sure that we address them. It's also the purpose for the circulation period. And I think, part of what's frustrating some commissioners right now is the fact that typically you would have seen this, if you saw it before circulation was done, you would see a project again after it was done and have that back and forth between staff and the comments that were made and be able to evaluate that and make a formal recommendation. So it's that piece is acknowledged.
Are there any other comments or questions at this point? So if any commissioner did want to make a recommendation to the city council on this environmental review, yes, Kimberly, you have a...
I just was wondering, procedurally, are we closed on the participants?
Yes, public comment is definitely closed, yes. Any comments from you are welcome still, though. So procedurally, this is our opportunity, short of any more discussion, to either make a recommendation or not. It's totally up to us. And if there is a commissioner that would like to make a recommendation, this is your time. Otherwise, we just let it roll on to city council. Yes, Judith, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a recommendation that the city council consider the entire public record of this hearing, including oral communications during this hearing, as well as all of the written communications, and that they return their questions to the Planning Commission if they choose to continue this item themselves, and that we would welcome further consideration. I guess a written recommendation with precise wording is something I haven't been able to propose right now, sitting in front of the screen. But I'm not willing to recommend approving the initial study with the negative declaration before the public comment period is over. It's quite that simple. And it gets very awkward if the Planning Commission and the City Council are both considering public comment or approval of an initial study at the same time. So that's the recommendation I propose that the council make. I am very aware at this moment that the City Council also has a majority of brand new members who have not necessarily encountered this kind of thing before. And in my opinion, that behooves us to tread carefully while voicing our enthusiastic support of connecting the Ridge Trail as a city project. But I don't think we can make a recommendation on the initial study at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Judith. You did start your comments with a recommendation of the City Council, and I just want to ask Director Loya if that fits, your sense of protocol at this point, short of recommending something about this environmental review. Can we forward a recommendation to the City Council about how they handle this and getting back to us and including the public record and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think that would be, again, you can certainly make a recommendation that encompasses that. I've sort of jotted down, what Vice Chair Mayor said, and I'd be happy to read it back and see if there's a motion to that.
Okay, can I just briefly ask David, if the commission would like, if it would be appropriate then at this point, since we're kind of off on a new path, to do some, my sense of our group here is that we're very, very, very favorable about this project. And it would be, in my opinion, awfully nice too, if we're sending some kind of scripted message short of supporting the environmental review, that we would include that, we could do a straw poll or something. There's tremendous enthusiasm I've heard from, I think, all of us about connecting these two trails. And I don't want them to not get that sense. I don't want them to be confused by a separate message that says you got to work out all these details.
I think that would be consistent as well with the public comment. Even folks that expressed some concerns generally said they were in support of the project in concept. So I think addressing those concerns to the extent we can, and making that part of the recommendation would be perfectly appropriate. Okay, so short of a few details, can we do a straw poll as to whether or not this Planning Commission recommends the trail connection between the Sunnybury Trail and the Arcata Forest Trail to occur? Yes, Judith, please.
Yeah, I don't believe that that is what we're being asked to do today. We've been asked to review the initial study and make a recommendation, if any, about approving the initial study or possibly recommending mitigated neg deck or something like that.
You're right. Those are the only two things, either recommend it or don't recommend it.
Right. So we're not being asked to approve the connection or not. That I don't think that that's what's on the table.
All right. I hear you. I'm just feeling like if we're sending some other message off to the city council about, which as you described is a bit of a complicated message.
So how about something like a recommendation that says the members of the planning condition enthusiastically support connection of the two parts of the Ridge Trail, and have reviewed the initial study draft. We recommend that the city council take into account the public comments, written and oral, submitted during the public comment period, including our public hearing, and address concerns raised in those comments. I don't know what else we can do. And the neat thing about Zoom is that you actually will have a transcript of what I've just said because I could never repeat it.
Is that a motion? I'll second that.
Yeah, sure. It can be a motion.
David, are you comfortable with that? Do you have enough information?
I think so. I'd like to read it back just to confirm.
Yeah, thank you.
The Planning Commission enthusiastically supports connecting the two parts of the Ridge Trail, that they reviewed the initial study and recommend the council take into account public comments, written and oral, provided during the Planning Commission meeting and address the concerns that were raised. Did I capture that?
We have a motion and a second. David, would you like to do a roll call on this?
Absolutely. Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Davies?
Aye.
Commissioner Barstow?
Aye.
Commissioner Visade-Elcott?
Aye.
Commissioner Figueroa?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mayor?
Yes.
And Chair Tagney?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I apologize for the awkwardness of the procedural challenges of having a meeting that isn't normal, but certainly appreciate the outcome.
Well, there was excellent opportunity for public engagement, that's for sure. You can tell that people were ready to talk about this one. And I really appreciate that we muddled through coming up with something here that we all felt pretty good about, I think. So thank you all. That ends our business items for the evening. I'm sorry, our public hearings. So now we move on to business items, of which we have none. And last is communications. Are there any from staff?
I'll let the Planning Commission know that the RFP, the request for proposals for the Strategic Infill Redevelopment Program is out. We've had a pre-proposal meeting, which was well attended. We have had about 30 people attend, and the responses are due back, I believe, February 12th, and I'm sorry, February 19th. And we will start our review that following week of those proposals. So I'll keep checking in, let you know how the progress of that RFP is going. It's up on our website right now if you care to take a look at it. Just Google Arcata and infill plan, and you should arrive at our Strategic Infill Redevelopment Program page.
Okay, thank you. Are there any commissioner communications? Seeing none, I think we're ready to adjourn. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.